background to World War II in the Pacific. The US entered the Pacific War against Japan on December 8, 1941. All military attacks against the four main Japanese islands and Taiwan were conducted by US military forces, as confirmed in numerous published sources. The United States is the conqueror and hence will be the principal occupying power. In other words, under international law, it is the USA which bears the responsibility for the military occupation, including rebuilding, reconstruction, etc. of Taiwan. In General Order No. 1, issued on September 2, 1945, General Douglas MacArthur gave directions to Chiang Kai-shek of the Republic of China to accept the surrender of Japanese troops in Taiwan. Since there was no functioning Chinese Navy or Air Force in 1945, Chiang's troops agreed to be transported to Taiwan on US ships and aircraft. Thus, the era of the ROC in Taiwan began in October 1945 with the full assistance and tutelage of the United States. Contrastingly, Chinese history books state that Chiang's troops came to Taiwan on their own initiative, but that is simply a face-saving exaggeration. In fact, it is important to recognize that Chiang's troops were exercising delegated administrative authority for the military occupation of Taiwan.
The following are an additional 5 items of proof to say that the leading allies did not recognize that October 25, 1945 was Taiwan Retrocession Day. Number 6. United Nations Commission Proposal.
In preparation for the final drafting of the post-war peace treaty, the United States planned to encourage the members of the United Nations to thoroughly investigate Taiwan's legal status and decide the best course for Taiwan's future.
Memorandum. Secretary of State Acheson to Secretary of Defense Marshall. Date: November 11, 1950. Subject: the question of Formosa. The question of Formosa will shortly come before the Political Committee of the General Assembly.
Under the procedure, we envisage a United Nations Commission would spend the first year in studying the problem, in bringing out all relevant factors, and in providing an opportunity for a full exchange of views among the governments concerned. The Commission would give careful consideration to the respective Chinese claims to Formosa, to the well-being and wishes of the Formosans themselves, and to the valid interest of the international community in promoting peace and security in the Western Pacific area.
Draft resolution on the problem of Formosa.
Noting that no formal act restoring sovereignty over these territories to China has yet occurred.
Number 7. Statement to the Far Eastern Commission.
In September and October 1950, the United States proposed in a brief statement to the members of the Far Eastern Commission general principles for a peace treaty with Japan.
Later, in an aide-memoire dated December 27, 1950, the United States expressed the views that
the Cairo Declaration of 1943 stated the purpose to restore Manchuria, Formosa and the Pescadores to the Republic of China. That declaration, like other wartime declarations, such as those of Yalta and Potsdam, was in the opinion of the United States government, subject to any final peace settlement where all relevant factors should be considered. On February 11, 1945, at Yalta, Churchill, Roosevelt and Stalin agreed that the USSR would enter the war against Japan on condition, among others, that the southern part of the Sakhalin and all the islands adjacent to it shall be returned to the Soviet Union, and that the Kuril Islands shall be handed over to the Soviet Union. The Yalta Agreement, like the Cairo Declaration, has been considered by the United States to be a statement of intention rather than as creating binding international commitments.
Number 8. General Douglas MacArthur's analysis.
General Douglas MacArthur stated at a U.S. congressional hearing in May 1951, legalistically, Formosa is still a part of the Empire of Japan.
Number 9. British policy toward Formosa.
Some 6 months before the ROC central government relocated to occupied Taiwan, the United States ambassador in the UK endeavoured to verify British views on the Taiwan situation.
Memorandum: U.S. Ambassador in the United Kingdom Douglas to the U.S. Secretary of State. Date: May 25, 1949, London. Subject: Problems of Taiwan.
I have the honour to report that very little attention has been given in British official and unofficial circles to the various problems of Taiwan, such as the status of the island itself and the status of any Chinese government which may be set up there, especially in view of the fact that much of China's resources are reported to have been transferred to the island. There is also a report in London that Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek and his two sons have left Shanghai for Taiwan, but the British Foreign Office has not been able to confirm this. In view of the above facts, the embassy has been endeavouring to obtain some indication of British thinking in regard to Taiwan, and the following are the results. Mr. Denning of the Foreign Office stated that neither the British Cabinet nor officials of the Foreign Office have given much consideration to the problems of Taiwan, and no Foreign Office policy has been established as yet. He stated that should a refugee Chinese government or a Chinese government in exile be set up in Taiwan, which is not yet legally Chinese territory, it is probable that the British government would simply appoint a British consulate in Danshui as an office of the British Embassy in China. His own opinions were that any Chinese government established in Taiwan would be in a very ambiguous position and would present difficult problems to the governments of the world, and especially to the United Nations. On May 5th, Deputy Chairman Bowles made the following statement: "Formosa, I realise, is the seat of the present nationalist government of China, but it is not China. I think it was part of Japan. Formosa is a part of Japan, and is not really China, though the Chinese government may be there."
Number 10. The status of the Chinese nationalists in Formosa.
Certain questions regarding sovereignty issues were debated in the UK Parliament in 1955. An important part of the discussion involved Formosa and the Pescadores.
Oral answer. Joint Under Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Robin Turton. Date: May 4th, 1955. Subject: Far East, Formosa and the Pescadores.
The case of Formosa is different. The sovereignty was Japanese until 1952. The Japanese treaty came into force, and at that time, Formosa was being administered by the Chinese nationalists, to whom it was entrusted in 1945 as a military occupation. In 1952, we did not recognize the Chinese nationalists as representing the Chinese state. Therefore, this military occupancy could not give them legal sovereignty, nor equally could the Chinese People's Republic, which was not in occupation of Formosa, derive any rights from the occupation of that territory. The fact is that Formosa is not under Chinese sovereignty. That does not mean that the Chinese nationalists have no right to be there. Their presence springs from the military occupancy in which they were placed by the Allied powers in 1945, pending future arrangements.
Summary for items 1 to 10.
United States Secretary of State John Foster Dulles told the Senate in December 1954, "Technical sovereignty over Formosa and the Pescadores has never been settled. That is because the Japanese peace treaty merely involves a renunciation by Japan of its right and title to these islands. But the future title is not determined by the Japanese peace treaty, nor is it determined by the peace treaty which was concluded between the ROC and Japan."
Conclusion: there was no Taiwan retrocession day.